Greetings from ShedSounds Studio here in rural West Virginia. My name is Ian Beabout, and I thought I would give a 2020 overview of all of the work that I've done here at ShedSounds Studio. Now, one major change between this year and last is, of course, the coronavirus. And the coronavirus did change the way that I think just about everybody does things, but it also changed the way that I do things. So for the majority of this year, I had no in-person clients, which is the first time in the studio's history, which studio's only been around for a couple of years. But this did push me into another realm. So one thing that I've always been interested in was doing mixing projects on the internet. So basically what this is people will record at home the way that they want it to sound and send me the multi-tracks in WAV format. I'll download them, convert them, put them in my DAW, which is Pro Tools, and mix it. And what we'll do is I'll send the mix back to the client. He or she will make comments, and I will change accordingly and send it back. So before I get into kind of the mixing and mastering projects, I will tell you about one in-person project that I did do, and that is a local progressive metal band, 12/8. Now, these guys were all about 16 to 18 at the time of recording, and they cut a 4-track live in the studio EP called Clueless. Now, I'm going to play you a sample from the Clueless album.
Won't let it be. Come to leave. Sung out and let me be. You can't do it alone. You can't kill me through the phone. My bones are breaking. My eyes are fading. So you can't do it alone. You can't kill me through the phone. My bones are breaking.
All right, so that is the only in-person session that I did in 2020, and I'm glad that I got a chance to do it because it is different from everything else on this list. So I did actually make a list, as you can see, of everything I've been involved with, and like every year, there are a couple of projects that are carrying over into the new year. So things that you'll see, hopefully, within a few months to a year. All right, so there was Michael Bass, Better Living Through Chemistry. Now, this was a Bandcamp-only release of an album that was entirely comprised of 1-minute tracks. And the concept was that each track was to represent a single element in the periodic table of elements. Along with this, you kind of get a bit of like a Satie vibe or Synclavier era Zappa, like Jazz from Hell or Civilization Phase 3 or Dance Me This. But he also had a little bit of fun. It wasn't without its sense of humor. And Michael is fond of putting movie references in, or, movie score references in his pieces, such as Krypton. If any of you follow superhero films, you probably recognize that theme. But once again, that's from Better Living Through Chemistry by Michael Bass. Also, I had another Bandcamp only release. It was a 2-track, I guess you could call it single. The name of the group is Refestramus, and the primary composer is a gentleman by the name of Derek Ferguson. And if you like your sticks and kind of pump progressive rock type stuff with a little bit of keyboard, Marillion, that sort of thing, like sort of early Marillion, maybe even a little bit of Cardiacs thrown in, you'll probably like Refestramus and the single, which is entitled Wasteland. So I'm going to put a little bit of that in.
Another country, always in your mind. Another country, another one behind. Everyone you ever knew.
Also, I've been working with a local psychedelic band, and the name of this group is Skunk Ape, and they are possibly the only active band. There are active projects in Wheeling, but these guys are braving the coronavirus to get together in a little RV somewhere in Shadyside, and they're just rocking it out. And they're producing content on the regular, producing music videos on the regular, so you should really check these guys out. I have done many mixes for them in the past year, but 2 have been released. First up, Not At All, and here's a sample of that. Running Through the Trees, which was the second and most recent video release that I contributed to. Also, while we're talking about online-only releases, I did a tape restoration project for Dave Newhouse, and the name of this project was Illegal Aliens Territory. And the way this was accomplished is Dave sent me a cassette tape. The recordings were made between, I think, 1977 and 1980 or something like that, and compiled in like 1987 or something. But what I did was I transferred on my cassette deck and, did some EQ, did some noise reduction, did some editing, like I fixed where there was like noise problems here and there, and made it a presentable release in 2020. And here's an example of that. You can, of course, find Illegal Aliens Territory on Bandcamp, and I would very much like to do more projects like this. This is something that's really easy and really fun for me to do, sort of resurrecting vintage recordings. So yeah, check it out. All right, now we are going to move into a couple of releases which I have talked about on the channel. And you'll notice that I often sort of don't talk about my Bandcamp only or online only releases. And I view this as a mistake. I really need to get better about talking about releases that aren't physical media. It's just, I think in my mind, I feel like it's easier to talk about something when I can show it, if you know what I mean. So I believe this would have been the first completed project of 2020, and it's Hart Newhouse, Finding Things. And this is two gentlemen from the band Moonmen, who I also work with, and this is the hard Ambient project. So for those of you who are meditators, I think this is for you. This is a good album to just sit down and clear your mind to. It really finds places that no other release that I've done this year quite does. It's a specific vibe that belongs only to this recording, and it's actually one of my favorite things that I've ever worked on. You know, that's like, man, that's the idea. Like, you want to be able to sit down and listen to your work and really enjoy what you're doing, and this is an example of that. So this came out, actually, I think this was one of the last things to come out, even though it was one of the first things that I worked on. And if you haven't had the chance to check it out, please do. Here's an example. Yeah, Hart Newhouse, Finding Things. Definitely check this out if you are getting out of Zappa and getting into Zen. That is a Godly and Cream reference for those astute listeners in the audience. All right, so speaking of Zappa, this is perhaps one of the zaniest of the releases that I've been involved in. Moonmen. This is called Tales of the Space Pirates. And I did make a video in which I described the process of making this record. So if you haven't seen that, do check it out. It's also on this channel. But yeah, this is another one that I think I can listen to for pleasure. It really is a great piece of work, and I'm glad to be a part of it. Here's an example. That artwork. That's Brett Harold Hart and Eric Kearns. It's a collaboration between the two of them, and I think it's just a fantastic like piece of art to hold in your hand. It's not just music, but it's something that you can hold in your hand and admire, and I really like that. Moonmen, Tales of the Space Pirates. And last but certainly not least of the projects that I've done this year, this is Rich O'Meara with Red CHARD, and this contains some of my favorite of my own mixing work, particularly the song Edgar's Dirge, which kind of recalls the work of Edgar Allan Poe. And honestly, if somebody is over here and they don't understand what I do, I put on this album and say, "Here, this is what I do," because I feel like it is so outside of my comfort zone and so outside of the timbres that you hear on these other records, that it's sort of like it's sort of something I'm really, really proud of, and I do want to share with people, and I want them to hear, what I'm capable of. So this is an incredible album. Again, this is one that I do put on sometimes, just to kind of re-experience. And yeah, I absolutely love the artwork. I think Rich did a great job. And talking about music styles, this is, to me, it's modern classical music. It's led by the marimba, and it's almost entirely percussion work. I think there's guitar and saxophones on one track, but otherwise it's all like mallet percussion and drum sets, and it's really beautiful. Again, this is an album that you can meditate to, but it does get dark in some places. I love that about it. It's very adventurous. And here's an example from this album. Check this one out if you don't have it. Rich O'Meara, Red CHARD. Okay, so we're almost wrapped here, but I thought I would end with a couple of releases that are in production as we speak. So I am almost finished with an album by a singer, songwriter, composer, multi-instrumentalist by the name of Chris Barros. And the name of the album is There Is No Time. And this is perhaps the most sort of straightforward progressive rock release that I've worked on. It recalls sort of Wind and Wuthering by Genesis, or even Pink Floyd's Animals in places, or even like a little bit of English folk like Fairport Convention or Mellow Candle. This feels very Mellotron-drenched, Mellotron-soaked. And I know that that's like a phrase that prog reviewers like to use sort of as amateurs, but I believe that this accurately describes what this album is like. There is tons and tons and tons of Mellotron on every track, just stacked up. And we are in the process of mixing and mastering it. There is a early master going around between the two of us that we're going to kind of comment on and make some changes to in the coming weeks. But that album should be coming out very soon. I would say early part of 2021, you'll be seeing it. And if I can get permission, I would like to include a little chorus of the title track. That was Chris Barros, Taking Your Time, There Is No Time. I absolutely love this album. Not only is it a prog rock album, but it's also a collection of good songs. And I don't feel like I've really done many albums that are collections of songs, which is something I enjoy songwriting. Like a lot of people don't realize that about me because I am kind of like an experimentalist or an avant-garde person. But I do like good songwriting. You know, I am getting into the Beatles this year, which is kind of different for me. I'm getting into Phil Collins' Genesis lately. I'm getting into Parliament Funkadelic. So, like, I do like good songwriting, and I think that Chris's album is really good songwriting, and I think you're going to really dig it when it comes out. I should also mention that Jerry King from Moonmen provided all of the bass guitar and little touches of guitar to this record, and it adds so much. Like, just a little bit adds so much, and I can't wait until this comes out. I can't wait to share it with you. All right, so the final thing I thought I would mention is my own personal project, which I've been working on, called the ShedSounds album. This will be a compilation of sorts, but I think it's going to be primarily previously unreleased material. There will be sort of like best of sort of situations where you might see a track appear that was on a limited release that you can't get very easily, but or perhaps it was never released physically. But for the most part, these are going to be reconstructed jams that occurred here at ShedSounds. And the idea is to tell the truth, tell the story that happened here, but with sort of creative liberties taken. It's sort of like if you're into Werner Herzog's films, he's kind of my primary influence because he does present a truth, but it's a constructed truth. So what the ShedSounds album will be is a constructed truth. And you know what? I will go ahead and provide a couple of examples of that. I think I will release a track from that very shortly. I've got the Skunk Ape guys working on a video for it, which is going to be really cool. But here's a couple of examples from the ShedSounds album.
And as he stood on that church's threshold, he realized the lies that he'd been told. In that black steeplechase.
Come, whirling dervish, let us dance tonight beneath the stars shining bright. The lovers will play on their tambourines as we dance through the moonbeams. At first turn slowly as you begin, then faster and faster start to spin through the darkness of outer space. When you feel the moonlight upon your face, you'll know it is time to be wise, so you can dance to paradise.
All right, well, I hope you really liked that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you had the chance to pick up any of these releases that I worked on. Let me know what you thought of them, if you enjoyed them, if you thought the mix was good. If you think it sucks, let me know. Like, I have thick skin. I can take it. But in the meantime, it's been a real pleasure talking with you today, and I hope to hear from you real soon. My name's Beabout, and yeah, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.